the shit story of my hunt for ancient Germanic spirit, featuring my bad English. Be me, living in a small village on the border of Germany and the Netherlands, testing my new night vision cam for school project. Wolves are turning back to the Netherlands through Germany. It's been all over the fucking news. Found a nice tree in the woods near a hill called the Tankenberg. Looking for a money shot. Install my sweet new cam, hook the baby up to a nice tree. Come back next day to look at pictures. Nothing but birds and small deer. Just spend fucking 400 pounds to spy on birds. Feels bad.jpg. Repeat this for a week or two. More birds, deer, and some hogs too. Send all pictures to a friend/project partner from school for further review. Next day, got home from a family dinner at some Spanish restaurant. Turn on PC. 3 emails from friend. 2 of them are about some rare birds. In the last email, he urges me to look at some picture that I took a week ago. Open up folder. Open pic, and see what appears to be a feral ghoul from Fallout 4, riding a hog. Holy fuck.jpg. Almost tear off my fucking balls as I was scratching them at the moment. Lose my shit a bit. I call friend. Don't know what to do. Go to police? No, what are they gonna do? Look for a Dr. Seuss character riding a pig? Don't think so. Next day, at school, talk to friend about pic. Too afraid to show pic to anyone. They might think I lost my mind or something. Ask him, did you show the pic to anyone, Anon? Yeah, man, my parents and my uncle. They think it's pretty funny. Weekend, go back home. Show pic to my mother. She says it's a weird picture like the ones on the Discovery Channel. Says grandpa used to tell stories about a man riding a hog. That's really specific.jpg. Next day, go to see Gramps. He pours me a drink as always. Kornbrenwein, or gin, as you guys in Trumptopia call it. My family is fueling my alcoholism. Gonna die before I turn 30 for sure. Ask him about a guy riding a hog. At first, he's clueless about what I'm talking about. He remembers and smiles. He told me about a spirit called Derk. I'm not trying that again. Derk with a hog. Says he is a protector of these woods, and something about an old farmer being cursed for shooting a rifle at God on Christmas Eve. He goes to the bookshelf to get an older leathery looking book with gold ornaments. I don't know how to describe it in English. You know what? Fuck you. For entertainment, I'm going to butcher this. Ovriso Sagenbook was the title on the cover. A book with stories about local legends like dwarves, water monsters, and witches. Under the chapter Wild Hunt, I found multiple stories about Derk. Something about the cursed farmer and one about him being a god from like pagan times. Some real Viking shit. I said to my grandpa, that's a weird name for a god. Derk. He smiles. That's not his real name, Anon. You can't speak his real name. It will bring bad luck. What's he called? I said. Voldemort? I said, smiling. Even just seeing the Wild Hunt is a bad omen. My grandma hears my grandpa talking about the spirit. She looks at us and says, wasn't he called Fro or Fry or something? In one fluent motion, my grandpa jumps out of his chair and begins to raise his voice. You don't speak his name? What did I just tell right now? Oh, fuck.jpg. Didn't know my grandpa was this superstitious. After he calms down, I showed him the picture that I took of the thing in the woods. My grandpa is silent. He even has this spear, he mumbles after a minute. I take a closer look, and you can almost make out a spear behind the figure. He misses a war horn, said Grandpa. A horn? I said. He turns the page of the book, and on it is a real nice looking picture of a Germanic looking dude riding a hog. He is blowing a horn. What does the horn do? I ask. I get some vague answer, something along the lines of, it helps him hunt. Couple of days later, back home, I do some research on Derk/Fro. Turns out, he was like an old Germanic god. Almost every Germanic country has its own name for him. In the Netherlands and Germany, they call him Fro, or Frey. And in the Scandinavian countries, they called him Freyr, god of fertility. Yeah, the dude indeed looks like a real ladies' man. Reading some information on the Tankenberg, where I took the pictures, there is a small pagan temple. Temple for some goddess named Tamfana. A temple for human sacrifice, possibly. Go to the temple just for the heck of it. Not much to see, just a small reconstruction of a temple and a nice view of the forest. Encounter some locals that live near the temple. Ask them about Tamfana. They proudly tell about the goddess of harvest and nature. I asked the man about Derk. He told me that every Christmas Eve, they round up all of their shit and bring it inside their home, because if you don't have your stuff together at midnight, Derk will come and wreck your shit, maybe even you. I ask, are there people who have seen Fro? The man looks at me like I just fucked his wife. Never say that name, he said. I laughed and said, what will he do, steal your broom? The guy said again, never say that name. He walks off. Weirdest interaction I ever had. A week passes and some dude on local news says that he had seen a man on a hog. That's it must be. Try to contact the man, but no response. Next day, got his address. Ride to his house. Nobody home. Return home. This looks like a dead end. 3 days later, turns out the guy committed suicide. Shit is getting too real now. That's what you get for looking funny at someone, I guess. Decide to go to police and show them our man, Fro. Man walks in and gives me the most disgusting cup of coffee I've ever had. They take some more info from me, like the location and date that the picture was taken. Return home. Can't sleep thinking of our boy, Fro. 4 a.m, loud knocking on our door. Some fucking goons from the government, or police, I don't know. They seize all my fucking equipment, my camera and the new camera that I just bought, especially for Derk, my phone and my laptop. Some thick-looking guy with thin comb-over asks if I have more pictures on that hard drive. No, they take it anyway. There was some porn on there as well. I know, just the regular stuff, don't worry. Luckily, I backed up all pics on my Google Drive, hackerman.gif. Grandpa passed away. Grandma said he wasn't doing so well lately. I begin to get paranoid. Think it's because of the Derk thing. Think the government is hiding something. Bought some new cameras. Currently hanging in the forest around Tankenberg. Struggling with my study. Will become a dropout soon. Obsessively watching my cameras for a sign of Derk, just to prove that it's out there. Ghosts. Tell your experiences. I've been followed by death my entire life. I had a Centennial woman tell me that I'm destined to be some word that I can't remember. But it involved my grandfather dying before my father reached puberty, and my father's firstborn dying in infancy before I was born, and my complicated few first months clinging to life. I'm only 25 from a very small town, but I've been to more funerals than I remember. I've had 7 people, including a girlfriend and several best friends, die in my presence, or around me. The past few months, I have been going to therapy for anger issues, and I am remembering horrible things about my childhood, in which I confronted my father about. I grew up in a haunted house, and experiences have been coming back to me in waves. Lots of memories talking to a dead aunt, or an old man whispering in my bedroom window. That would be impossible on a 2nd floor. Worst was something my parents actually joked about for years, because of an entity that I will post about in next post. I spent 12 to 24 being a militant atheist, and have recently become spiritual, and suspect this is why I'm remembering this. This one has been the strangest recollection because my parents have mentioned it for years, and bullied me for it. I used to cry and scream about Kiss being in my room, because it was the only point of reference my 6-year-old brain had to describe the 8-foot-tall, pale-skinned man with bat wings over his eyes, standing in the corner of my bedroom. I vividly remember one day playing outside when I was maybe 10, while my father washed his car, and I went inside to get more action figures, and in broad daylight, with the sun blaring through all windows, I saw the bat-faced man clear as day in my bedroom. I ran out and told my father, and he very seriously told me to go back into the house and ask him to leave, which I recently confronted him for. When I went back in, the man was standing in the same place, and when I asked him to leave, he started approaching me, and I screamed and wailed and grabbed a toy sword, and my father rushed in and carried me out of the house. For years, my parents bullied me whenever Gene Simmons was on TV or anything Kiss related. and they bought a fucking cardboard cutout of him to put into the basement of a house we moved to in high school. I always chalked this up to an overimaginative kid being paranoid, but I now remember seeing this man several times, and him yelling at my dead aunt. I understand not believing your kid telling you a ghost story, but your kid tells you that there's a man in the house, or whatever I said. Even if I said, "Kiss is in my bedroom," and none of this alerting any kind of fatherly instinct always bugged me. Then him giving me what I now know is fairly common advice for dealing with ghosts is really fucking odd. We were drinking watching the game last week, and I asked him about this specific instance, and that's when he told me lots of things that I'm still reeling from. He has also seen the monster, and had read lots about the occult, and could hold a conversation with me about all kinds of ex-schizo shit. My dad is 55, and has never spent a day on the internet. He has been an entirely normal blue-collar guy my entire life, and spends his weekends fixing things and listening to the radio. I've never seen him read a book. It really freaked me out as we discussed the encounters I had as a child, and that he routinely took me to church and had me baptized 3 times, which I have zero recollection of. I have seen very bizarre and feel like private things that I've never spoken about or put to writing until now. When I moved into this apartment, there was an old woman sitting at my dinner table at 3 a.m. when I went to get water downstairs. I did not tell my wife about this, or acknowledge the woman as I felt I was intruding her space. I took a sip of the water and left it for her, and I never saw her again. There is an old graveyard in my city I have seen unexplainable but seemingly non-malevolent things at. I have seen orbs and objects my entire life. I feel like I've been marked by something my father did, but I'm too busy with college and work to investigate further or confront him again. I have one experience that, from time to time, I'll tell here. I was a 7-year-old kid sleeping with my grandma. I couldn't sleep that night. Grandparents lived in some flat. Sometime late at night, 2 ghosts flew through the doors. For a moment, I thought that the doors were open. I don't remember the one, as it quickly vanished, but one of them was flying around happy and slipped between me and Grandma. Then, he looked me in the eyes, and then he realized that I see him, and his eyes were full of dread and horror. He didn't expect me to see him. It all disappeared, and I had a feeling like it was a dream, except I couldn't sleep that night. It all happened very quickly. As a matter of fact, it takes more time to tell the story than the actual happening. It was weird. I wasn't necessarily scared, maybe slightly, but I felt like, what the fuck is happening? How can it be real? Sure, at this dead old lady's house the other day, cleaning it out and bringing any sensitive papers, things with bank numbers or social security numbers, to be destroyed. She had a ton of shit to go through, and I had to make sure her car title wasn't in there. My boss also didn't know if she had a will, so I had to find that too. I'm primarily in the lower floor of her house. Her bedroom is on the upper floor. Sitting in the living room going through papers, I start hearing what sounds like footsteps coming from upstairs. So I go up to look, and I don't see anyone, or anything. Go back downstairs and keep working. All of a sudden, I can hear voices upstairs. Go back up to check. The TV in her room is on. Shut the TV off and unplug the phone upstairs while I'm at it, because the phone has been ringing constantly the whole time due to telemarketers. The phone rings after I unplugged it, but it stopped when I pulled my phone out to get a video. I still have a ton of stuff to go through over there. Both my sister and I have had experiences seeing a doppelganger of one another in the house when we grew up. I saw and passed what I thought was her in the hallway when she wasn't even home one evening. She saw me in the corner of her room at night and yelled at me to get out when I was sleeping in an adjacent room. She woke me up by yelling at what she saw. One of our cats was run over when I was a kid. Our other cat spent the entire rest of the day prowling around outside, looking for her. He eventually came back in after sunset and immediately went to sleep. Poor guy. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sounds of him zooming around the house. I saw him run past my bed, chasing a black mass, roughly the size of our other cat, the one that had just died earlier that day. Mom vacuuming living room. Old cigar box that belonged to my stepfather starts shaking. Mom sees this and is like, "What the fuck, mate?" Turns off vacuum. Box still shaking. Mom grabs cigar box and takes it to the bathroom and puts it in the bathtub. Still shaking. Puts it down. It stops shaking. Open it. Nothing but thread and needles in it. Mom uses it as a sewing box. Stepdad was an alcoholic and killed himself in the living room a few years before. I'm very skeptical of ghosts, but I've had two very strange experiences a few years back. I think about these sometimes, and I still can't come up with any good explanations. First one below. I'll put the second one in a separate post. Had a girlfriend in high school/college for 3.5 years. Me and her used to argue a lot 2 years into the relationship. Live in the middle of the woods. Just me and my ex at the house. Had 2 dogs sleeping upstairs. We were in the basement. I was doing the laundry and she was arguing with me about something. In the middle of the argument, one of the doors in the basement slams shut all by itself. Door slams hard. It's a super heavy door, and it's not like there was any wind in the basement. My ex immediately goes silent and runs upstairs. We find dogs still lying on the couch upstairs. I try to talk to her about how weird it was. She replies with a shaky voice, I don't want to talk about it. I try to bring it up to her 2 weeks later. She says that she doesn't remember any of it. Here's my second story. Also happened when I was in a relationship with that same girl. Driving home from school one day, I get a call from my ex out of nowhere. She's crying. Sounds scared and angry. Anan, who's with you in the car? Nobody, what the fuck? She doesn't believe me. She thinks I'm playing some sort of mean joke on her. I FaceTime her to show that I'm in an empty car. She finally believes me that there's nobody in the car with me. She explains that she got a call from my number. She answers it, thinking it was me. Some voice she doesn't recognize on the line. Says something to get her really scared. She hangs up out of fear and decides to call me scared and angry because she thought I was just playing a scary prank on her. After I FaceTimed her and got her to calm down, I tried to ask multiple times what the person on the line said to freak her out so bad. She kept dodging the question and never told me. I tried to ask her about it 2 weeks later, and just like the first story, she said she didn't know what I was talking about. I know that both stories actually happened. They weren't a dream or something, because I told a close friend both stories after they happened, and he remembered me telling him a few weeks later. I'm still friends with the same guy, and we were just talking about these stories the other night. Alright, I got one. Be me, 16 years old, chilling in bed. Currently midnight. Moon is full. Shines through the curtains. Across the wall, I see a shadow of a cloaked figure holding a scythe. I freak the fuck out. The being is composed entirely of shadow. It starts moving towards me. Fuck this. I don't have time for this. I need sleep. I close my eyes. I can still see it. I open my eyes. It's still there. I close my eyes as tight as I can, and it's still visible. I turn my head the other way, and it's still visible. It looks at me curiously. I instantly fall asleep. All my dreams that night are composed of horrific images of gore and torture, while that shadow being lurks in the background. My dreams are usually weird, but are never gory. When I awake in the morning, I'm extremely alarmed by how utterly graphic my dreams were, and left wondering what the fuck happened last night. The most memorable one was when I was maybe 5. Was waking up in the middle of the night and seeing an older man in my room staring out the window. He was wearing a zigzag patterned sweater. My father went through some clothing left in the house from the landlord's father, who had died decades prior, and found the exact sweater. I had a little children's book that played music when you pressed different buttons. Maybe 5 or 6 songs like Old MacDonald Had a Farm and such. One time in the middle of the night, I wake up to the book playing a song I had never heard before. I had action figures of different brands and types that made noise when you pressed a button. In the middle of the day, most if not all of them started to make noise and wouldn't stop, repeating over and over. My parents were around for that, and they had to put them in the guest bathroom we rarely used until their batteries died. I had seen green hands on 2 separate occasions. The first time, it was at night. I was sitting on the couch that was in the middle of the living room, not pressed against the wall, and I see a monstrous-looking hand with fairly long black nails. and was overall grotesque. The other hand looked fairly normal and was near the doorknob in my bedroom in the middle of the night. My father claimed to have seen this hand too, on a different night. I eventually refused to sleep in that room since most of the occurrences happened there. I slept on the pull-out bed in the living room for years. One time, in the middle of the night, I heard a car drive into our driveway. I could hear it rolling on the gravel, and even the car door open and close. I couldn't see the car, and there were no lights, and nobody came to the door. There were several other things that happened, but those stick out the most, and the rest are very fuzzy memories as I lived there between 4 and 11 years of age. Weirdest/strangest things you found on accident thread. I'll go first. Be me, browsing poll because I was immeasurably bored, and decided to do a check-in on it. Someone linked a random YouTube stream called something like High School Girls Volleyball, insert date here. Asks if it's connected to Vegas or some shit. The channel that was streaming seemed to be owned by some school, which, according to Google, was based in Minnesota or something. The rest of their videos looked like normal high school sports events and practices. But this particular stream was weird. The camera looked to have been set in some sort of office. Entire room looked dark except for light coming through a door left ajar. From what I could tell, this wasn't a case of some superintendent forgetting to stop a stream. The stream started out like this. Video was so low quality and at such a weird angle, I couldn't tell what was on the other side of that door. Just looked like a bunch of light. No sound at first, but I shit you not, I eventually started hearing laughter from what sounded like a kid in the background. Sounded like they were right outside the room. Weren't laughing for an apparent reason. Checked time for state that this school was based in, 11 p.m. I was still trying to process this all when the light coming through the door was suddenly turned off. Fuck this shit, I'm out.mp4. Still save link to the stream in my notes in case I was brave enough to watch it again later. 5 hours later, decided to check back in with the stream. Stream had already ended. Recording from it is not at all what I saw on the stream yesterday. It was set in a completely different room, most likely a gym, and it was actually a high school girls volleyball game. It was also much higher quality than that part of the stream that I saw. About a month later, we're searching through old notes when I found the link to the video again. Oh yeah, what was up with that .jpeg? Video is private. Unfortunately, this was back on my old phone, which I completely smashed because I'm a dumbass, so I don't know if I can recover that link. And even if I did, it probably wouldn't matter much because the stream had like 5 views max. So I don't think it was archived. Are pharmacies multidimensional? Good evening, X. I believe I've stumbled onto a truly earth-shattering phenomena. For clarity, I work in a pharmacy as a retail associate. I essentially stock shelves and put tags to indicate sales for 8 hours or so, while intermittently browsing 4chan on my phone. Well, I was closing out my shift last night and started humming along to whatever the fuck was playing on the radio. To which I then realized I had no idea what was playing on the radio. The song had an alien quality to the melody, and the lyrics were gibberish at best, though that may be the fault of the constant noise from the ventilation system. Not to connect the two ideas, but this happens a lot when the store is empty. Besides me and one other employee, who always sits in a back office anyway. No customers come in past 6 o'clock, so the whole pharmacy gets that liminal space aura, especially with our pharmacy's above average style. I just cannot explain these weird tracks that play. I would call for alien waves hitting a local tower or something, but the melodies are always incredibly human. Not something I would expect from another race of beings, or anything like that. That's the only reason I even consider the dimensional approach. Maybe some kind of nexus point, or connection between two of them. First time experiencing something truly paranormal by my definition, and I don't know if this could be used to communicate or something. I'd love to see if pharmacies already have a supernatural precedent, or not, if anyone else had experiences in them. I've gotten this too, but not in a pharmacy. My explanation is, whatever this simulation or what have you, begins to run at low capacity when you're alone. That's why you often space out, or, in contrast, have very deep thoughts. During both of these mindsets, you are very distracted from the placeholder environment around you. I have legit seen people disappear behind a thin wall, with a witness right next to me. Pharmacies do kind of feel otherworldly. What kind of location lets me buy opium, amphetamines, and cigarettes all in one spot? Not to mention they're having an awesome sale on shampoo. What's their motivation?